Got some new suspension for the rally.
Suspension review.
I decided to order from Race Tech, but Race Tech's here in California. I got the new rear shock, so this is just a replacement for the back. Front, we add a spring and we put in these little gold valves. These bikes only have one fork spring stock in one side. So the Race Tech kit sends you another fork spring you add into this left-hand side with all these shims. The instructions they give you are pretty complex and pretty customizable. Okay, I think we're ready to pull the rear shock out. This is pretty straightforward. Take the rear wheel off, undo that bottom linkage, and here she is. Here are the shocks side by side. This is the stock one on the right and the Race Tech G3S on the left. Definitely a nicer shock. The stock one isn't rebuildable. They do sell a spring kit for it, so you can just change the spring, and that's a lot cheaper. This shock really isn't as cheap as I wanted it to be. No compression dampening. It has rebound dampening, and that affects compression dampening as you adjust it, but they're not separate. Stock shock is 8 pounds 2 ounces. Race Tech shock is 6 pounds 7 ounces. That's a pretty good savings. I'm surprised by that. Now's a good time to get some extra grease on these bearings. They ship these bikes with such little grease in there. Get a good clean screwdriver. You can just pack in a little extra grease. You got to be gentle here. Make sure you don't knock those needle bearings out, or else you'll be scrambling around the garage trying to put them all back in. Factories are shipping bikes with such little grease right now. This is a 2020 with only 600 miles, and they're dry in there. The rear shock wasn't too bad to change, pretty straightforward. I think any level mechanic can accomplish that. Now we're going to pull off this left fork. We're adding a spring and changing out those gold valves. The dampening rod is where we're going to do our real work today. There's just a bolt going in the bottom that holds down there, and then the cap threads onto the top of it. Here are the parts we're changing inside the fork. This is the compression valve. This is the stock one. And this is the gold valve that we'll be replacing it with. I think it's... And the rebound valve is here. See the shims on there. The Race Tech kit comes with a bunch of new shims. And they give you this chart for setting up your shim stack. And you can adjust this, fine tune it for your needs. Okay, here's the shims laid out. For the compression side, I need these ones. I need 8 15 by 17. The point 15 is the thickness, and the 17 is the outer diameter. So I got 8 of those up here. Better double check my work. And then I need to assemble all those onto here. Stand by. Okay, here's the completed shim stack. This is the relief valve for going back. And those are my shims in there. 2-stage shim. So there's a tiny little air gap you can see between this last shim. Supposed to help. Which means you just have this little divider shim. A little Loctite. That 25 inch-pounds really isn't very tight. Here's the stock valve that I removed. Doesn't look a ton different. Same with the check valve on top. The shim stack on the bottom. This is the new rebound valve. I'm going to replace the old one. Got my shims laid out. Collar. And there's a spring. These instructions tell you right where everything goes. Make sure you get the valve on the right direction. The dampening rod's installed, and the spring kit is installed. Stock, the left fork doesn't come with a spring, so the Racetech kit adds a spring in here. Real simple. Literally just drop it down in there and tighten the nut up. So we're ready to close this. These have different fork oil heights. The left fork, you only put 500 milliliters in, and the right fork, you put 600 milliliters in. That install really isn't too bad. I think average mechanicking abilities can do it. You got some 10 millimeters on the triple clamps. One tip, if you're going to do this yourself, is break this cap free. Loosen the top triple clamp, break this cap free before you remove the fork out of the bike. Got a couple 5 millimeter Allens here, 12 millimeter head bolts to take the brake caliper off. If you have the ABS model, there's an ABS sensor here that's an 8 millimeter. You need a 14 millimeter hex for this, which I didn't have, so I crafted the old double whammy vice grips to take the axle out. I need to get that tool for when I'm going dual sport riding, so I can get my front wheel off. And the back was straightforward as well. It's 14 millimeter on one side and 17 millimeter on the other for the linkage. I pulled off the one bolt here for these two dog bones, and that gets you to the bottom bolt. I removed the rear wheel, and the same with the top. Both side plastics have to come off. It's a 14 millimeter and a 17 millimeter on the other side to get that top bolt out. But it wasn't too bad. Anybody with medium mechanicking skills can do it, I think. The shims take a little bit of patience. Got to keep good track of them. You got to have one of these calipers so that you can measure each shim. They just come in a pack. They just send them to you in these packs, and there's no real rhyme or reason. So you got to measure each one as you build your shim stack. Torque down the triple clamps, and then I'm ready for a test ride. Watch out. I'm out here at, little piece of BLM land. It's time for the suspension review. I'm really pleased with it. The accommodations out here are so good. Can't say enough good things about Racetech. They're a race company. If you order their stuff, it's gonna turn it into a dirt bike, a mean dirt bike, which I'm super stoked about. But now the suspension's done, you see all the other flaws in the bike. The bike wasn't designed to go that fast. And as soon as you finish the suspension, you'll be looking at all the other things. The geometry isn't quite right. The horsepower is the biggest one. You're gonna have a hard time getting the horsepower out of the bike to match the suspension. And there's things you'll never change, like the handlebars are a little too close to the cockpit and they're not adjustable. You won't be able to stretch that out like European bikes. So I'm having an issue with race sag. With these dual sport bikes, you expect to be able to ride them in your shorts and t-shirt after work, and then you gear up, throw saddlebags on it, and you expect it to perform the same. So right now it's sags a little bit high, and then when I throw the saddlebags on across the back, sags a little bit low. So that'll be, I think you just got to get used to adjusting the spring if you want that wide of a range. The suspension is well worth the money. I'm into it. $1,280 for front and rear from Racetech. It's about the same from Rally Raid. Even on the road, I feel safer cutting hard on the road. Dirt, completely different machine, way better. It's not so much about mechanicking skills, it's about patience. If you have the patience, then you'll be able to accomplish installing the Racetech stuff. Go slow, follow the instructions. Well, I'm empty. So definitely do the suspension, but don't expect too much out of the bike.
Woo! I gotta take it easy after that one. I'm gonna turn the camera off and just get home. See you guys.